Welcome, guys. This is a young leading leadership and distance leadership, and today we're having Mrs. Lucy Lucas. Yeah, yes. So she'll be speaking on developing a global perspective as young leaders, and one of the reasons why this topic was given this name was because of I believe we have a lot of young people who have great talent, who have great substance, who have great things to give to the world. But because they think there's a stereotype about Africans that we are Africans, so there's nothing we can actually offer. So I'm putting up this section, and then she's actually a product of Africa, representing Africa, and she's a global icon representing Africa. So she'll be joining us very soon, and then we'll get up from there. Thanks, guys, for joining, and for those who have been watching this later. I'm really grateful, and I hope the love this section is blessing you. Okay, so we're just going to share the link to her now. Okay, so so I'm going to read our introduction now, and then okay. Okay, so okay, so I'm going to read our introduction, and then while I'm reading the introduction, then she will join us. Okay, so Mrs. Lucy is a managing director at the Morgan Sterling and the author of the book Bold New Normal. She's an international. Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, so let me. Okay, she's the co-founder of the Executive Network. She served as vice president of FIFA Normalization Committee in Ghana. She's also served as the board chair of the Petract, serves on the boards of INSED and Mentorship. She is a chartered electrical and electronic engineer with a first-class honors degree from University of East London. She's a member of the Institute of Engineering and Technology UK, holds an MBA from the INSED in France. She has over 2 decades of corporate experience with Blue Chip at Tigo, Emilicom, Vodafone and Airtel. Her career spans manufacturing, telecommunication, banking and automotive industries in Europe and Africa. She's led technical and marketing and sales functions before becoming the CEO. She's a passionate advocate who believes in harnessing science, technology, engineering and mathematics to advance development in Africa. She's an advocate for greater participation in STEM, especially for young people across the continent. That is Mrs. Luce, and then I'll be heading up right now, and thank you so much for joining. Okay. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Omar. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I'm really grateful. Really grateful. Really grateful.
You're
It's a
welcome.
great privilege to have you here today. So I'm going to start live on Mixlr for those who are actually joining. For those who are joining through the audio. Okay, we started now.
Okay.
So I read you listen before you came in, so that you don't have to waste much of your time.
That's
so
fine. I'm going to see whether I can turn this sideways. Let me see if it works if I turn it sideways. Not quite. Is the angle I'm on is not good, right? I'm sideways now.
Okay. So do you want us to do it that way?
No. Yeah, so that we're side by side. Let's see if we can do side by side. Can you turn your device and see whether we can do
side
by side?
Okay.
Yay, we did it.
Okay, that's good. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, very good. Is it okay?
Yes, good.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I read Mrs. Lucy's profile already, so she's going to go straight to the point, and then I won't have to read the profile anymore again. So thanks so much, man. I'm really grateful. Really grateful.
That's fine. Thank you for reading, and thank you to everyone who's joined us. And I hope you're having a good weekend. So I'm all yours. You ask, I answer.
Okay, so I read a profile, and then I just thought that wow, this is a great privilege to have a global icon representing Africa to speak on this platform. So I briefly we just wanted to talk about what she understands by developing a global perspective as young African leaders.
um, I think before you develop globally or a global perspective, you have to start at home, right? So the first step is, what do you really think about yourself? What's your perspective of yourself? Start by, I don't even mean in your home, your town, your family, you as an individual. What's your perception of yourself? What do you believe that you have to offer? What are your interests? What are your values? What matters to you, right? Really taking the time out to understand who you are. Because I know on your platform, you deal a lot with leadership, the subject of leadership. And I always like to remind people that in leadership, you have to lead yourself first. The first person you lead is you. Before you try and lead anyone else, it has to be about you. And I think the same goes when you're trying to develop your perspective. It starts with understanding yourself, your authentic self, and what you bring to the table. And then it's important to understand your community, your country, the people around you, and what that offers. And all too often, sometimes, especially in African countries, we are left believing that we as individuals or our countries don't have a lot to offer the world, which is not the truth. As individuals, as countries, we've offered the world a lot for a very, very, very long time. History demonstrates that we've always actually, I always say to people that Africa has always been global. Africa was global before globalization, because African resources have always, when I say resources, I don't just mean resources in the ground, but more importantly, human capital has always been part of a global agenda, long before the term globalization was formalized. So yourself, understanding yourself, your country, and then understanding the world from different lenses, whether it's geopolitical, whether it's trade, whether it's what people in different parts of the world like and dislike. It's important to develop a perspective so that you understand your part in that global perspective. And I'm sure you have more specifics, or people have more specific questions, but I think as an overarching macro response, I'd say that's, you start with yourself and you build out and you understand the rest of the world so that you can find your place in that world.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to go straight to the questions now. So the first question is, being an African, how were you able to break free from the general stereotype that Africans are incapable of coming to the global limelight?
I didn't have to break free of the stereotype. That is the truth. Look, and I talk about this in my book. Unfortunately, too many people are socialized and raised to believe that they are less than, or they're inferior, or they need to take a back seat, right? And so then you have this challenge of having to break out of it because you've already been told so often that you're less than. And I'm not even talking about the people around the world. I'm talking right in our homes. A lot of people have been told these things by their own parents, of how they're less than, how they should know their place, how they should be in their corner. I was very fortunate. Both of my parents are Ghanaian, 100%. My dad is an Ashanti man. My mother is a Ga woman. And I emphasize that because I believe their backgrounds played a really big role in how they socialized me and my siblings. My father, being an Ashanti man, always had a very strong belief in empowering women. If you read the history of Ashantis and the fact that the society is a matrilineal, this is no surprise at all. So he always had this sort of, he treated us equally as children, but more importantly, he spent a lot of time and energy he invested in our human capital, our brain capacity, what our minds can do. So we never had this sense of we can do less than somebody else because of who we are, right? It's the expectation that you just go ahead and do your work. And he celebrated every time. So, I know lots of people talk about how they got in trouble when they didn't do well in school. Yeah, if you didn't do well, yes, he would make the point to you. But more importantly, he focused on celebrating us. If you did well. And when I say celebrate, I don't mean a party. Look, my dad didn't, my parents didn't have tons of money to say, it would just be like, oh, you people have done really well. Let's go to this food joint for a special meal. Today we won't eat at home. We'll go and eat somewhere. I mean, I know it sounds small, but for us, it was a big deal that, we're going, I'm not talking about fancy restaurants. Sometimes it could be just a food joint. But his point was that you've done well, let's celebrate it. Then I bring my mom into the equation, and I always call her the dreamer. So again, even growing up in her village in Ghana, she always had this sense of, I want to see the world, I want to explore, I want to do different things, which she also passed on to us. So, I've given you this long-winded start to say that there is huge advantage, and many people listening to us today are either parents or will be parents one day. We have a responsibility to socialize each other differently. So that there's no need to actually do a breaking out. It should be that we're actually telling ourselves a difference in the narrative. And that's why in my book, I talk about the fact that Africans need to be ambassadors to each other. Because unfortunately, we do have some people who need to break out. And this is where we need to share positive stories with each other. We need to reinforce each other. We need to focus on what is good about the next person, right? I'm talking to you today. You're in Nigeria today. I was talking to someone just yesterday who told me about an experience in Nigeria where a radio station asked people to call in and tell them what was great about Nigeria. And this person was so saddened by the fact that every single caller focused on complaining. Even though the show was tell me what's great, the people who took the time to call in couldn't see what was great. So this is what we need to break out of. We need to break out of this mindset that a lot of people have, that we're less than, things are not great, there's nothing that we can do about it. Very few are socialized to believe in themselves, and we need that to change. We need the majority to be socialized with self-belief. Self-belief is not the same as superiority. You don't raise people to think that they're better than other people, but you have to raise them to believe that they are good enough. They have something to offer the world, their community, the next human being to them. So in the instance where unfortunately people do need to break out, then we need to be ambassadors to each other. But if you're raising children yourself, or you influence young people in your life, in any sphere of your life, please take the time to reinforce self-belief, self-dignity, the confidence that they need to play their role in this world.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much. So one of the things I saw that was self-belief is different from self-superiority. Wow. Thank you so much for that. So next question is, you're very successful. You have a track record of success. How did you come this far? How were you able to manage your down times, your failures, and the moment of rejections?
Well, that's hard, and I really appreciate the question, because a lot of the time when people connect, you just hear the stories of, it's good, and then it's like, it all miraculously happens. I think the first thing is that self-awareness of how you respond to challenge is really important. So you need to develop a sense of how you recognize that you're facing a challenge and how you respond to it. Because what happens over time is that you get better at dealing with certain challenges, and then you get, challenges keep getting bigger. So if you want a bigger opportunity, you're going to face a bigger challenge. So if you haven't dealt with if you don't know how to deal with a small challenge, then you're not going to be able to deal with a big one. So it's that self-awareness to walk through challenges. But I think it's probably more helpful to walk you through one or two practical examples of situations I've been in to bring the message home. So there was a time where I worked in a situation where I had a really challenging boss, really, really challenging, not just in terms of challenging me on performance. Performance, I don't mind if you push me, but the person's manner, attitude, the way he engaged, I literally went through a phase where, and so you might have experienced, you wake up in the morning and your heart sinks that you have to go to work. You're literally feeling like, I'll do anything else but go to this place today. And what I did in that time is that I developed a morning routine to really prepare myself. So many people will be familiar with the notion of waking up in the morning and having a devotional and reading and praying. But I took that a step further. What I used to do is I do the normal devotional read my Bible, say my prayers. And then I had different books I was reading. I read a number of books over time. So that morning I would read a chapter of the particular book I was reading. I would go for a walk to kind of meditate and reflect on what I learned from the book and really put my mind in a completely different place, calm myself down and prepare myself to go. And the impact of this was that over time, what changed was me, not so much the boss. What changed was the way I react, the way I respond, the way I engage. And the day after a number of months, he noticed it. So we're sitting in a meeting one day and he said to me, you seem very different. You've changed your behavior, your attitude. And I was like, wow, okay. But this was me responding to what felt really difficult for me to have to, pick myself up and go to work every day had become a real challenge. And the reason why I use that specific example is that, as many people will know, a number of years after that, I went on to become the CEO of Airtel in Ghana. But when I was actually being interviewed for that job, interestingly, that experience, that phase of work that I just described to you that was very difficult, was the biggest part of my career that the prospective interviewers wanted to delve into, right? So I guess there was some understanding that it must have been a challenging situation. And so it made me realize that for the many things that I had done in my career, if I hadn't done that particular job and I hadn't persevered and I hadn't gone through the learning, I've given you just one example of the things I had to do. There was a lot more to it. This job, the CEO job that came a few years later wouldn't have happened, right? And it's important, especially for young people, to recognize that challenges shape us. They are what actually make us. Our successes don't make us. The success is just an outcome, and you see at the other end, and people are like, oh, he did well, she did well. It's the challenge that makes you. So the question becomes, do you want to be made? Or do you want to fold your arms, avoid any challenge, any situation that's uncomfortable, and stagnate? That's the real challenge. So what did I learn out of that about myself? I learned that I in terms of responding, I can be at the time I could be a reactive person and let the way I feel show. And when you do that as a leader, it takes away the opportunity for you to pause, think, reflect, and engage. So one of my mantras to anybody who works for me now is act, don't react.
Wow.
They're not the same thing. The two are not the same. If I act, it's a conscious choice and decision I've made of how I'm going to behave in a certain situation. If I react, then it means my behavior is being determined by someone else. And I may be saying and doing things that ideally I wouldn't want to say and do, but because I'm reacting, I'm responding to that person. So act, don't react.
Wow. Thank you so much. Act, but don't react. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ma. So the next question is, you're still very young. Yes, young. Yes. And then there is a general myth that says it is okay to be lenient with your goals and vision while you're young. And how were you able to balance being young and your passion and drive for what you love, and at the same time having to understand when to be lenient?
To be lenient on yourself, be kind to yourself.
Like lenient in such a way that, let's say, oh, maybe just relax, take a break from success, just take a break. Don't stress yourself, don't do too much.
Um, I must admit that doing too much in some ways has become second nature. Well, it had become for quite a while. And I'm definitely in a phase where I'm trying to whittle it down. So I think when you're young, especially for me, when I was younger, I like to explore a lot of different things. And I like to be busy. I find it motivating, but not to the point of stress. So I like to do things that are of interest to me. I like to take chances. As you've seen by my career, I haven't always done the same thing or been in the same industry. And I like to explore. And I think when we're younger, we have the energy to explore. And you know, concrete examples. When I was in school, for instance, I was a science student, but I absolutely loved French, so I wouldn't abandon it. And I wasn't going to box myself as science and you know, not language. Why can't I do both? You can do both. You can be a science student and do a language as well, as an example. Or when I was a young engineer, I joined a sales team for a company called Mary Kay Cosmetics, which many people may have heard of. And they do this, you know, sales. You know, you go to people's houses and you do makeup and things for them. And for me, it was fascinating because it was my first foray and learning about sales. So I was doing this in my spare time, but as an engineer, I knew very little about how you sell things to people, or even cosmetics and all this kind of stuff. But I got to learn through the training, right? So what I'm trying to say is that you don't pile things on yourself just for the sake of, I want to be successful. So I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. You have a job, you need to focus on your job and do well at your job. If you have other interests, make time for them, but make time for them for interests that you enjoy. That you're doing it not because you're trying to achieve so much. I mean, this Mary Kay example, for instance, I never tell anybody about it. It was a nice, fun experience. I never made any money out of it because I never turned into a great, you know, makeup artist or anything like that. But it was a fun experience to learn about how this other part of business works. And I think as you get older, and you have more responsibility, then you have to try and narrow it down. And what exploring different experiences does for you is that you soon learn what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And so you can park some things and say, okay, if I get an opportunity in this area, maybe it's not for me in future because I've tried it and I didn't like it. This other area is my area of growth. So always create a balance. Otherwise, if something goes wrong at work and your whole life is only your job, you just be unduly stressed. You have no outlet. You know, you have no other way to engage yourself mentally. I've talked about Mary Kay. Somebody could, you know, I have a family member who enjoys cycling. Do other things. But I think the ultimate message I'm trying to get across is that on any given day, you have 24 hours. You have to spend some of it working, but don't waste the rest of it, especially when you're young. You know, and I know we're on social media right now, but especially don't waste it on social media. Do not waste your life. It's not your time, it is your life. Do not waste your life on social media. Your youth is the time to learn and acquire multiple skills, explore multiple interests, multiple capabilities, which will then help you narrow things down as you get older. Now, stress is an interesting word that you use, and it over time it has been relatively alien to me. I don't use it very often, and I'm not saying I never get stressed, but I you know, on the rare occasion when I do, I know it. So we have to distinguish between I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted. There are other things that are going on with us that sometimes, if we leave, build up to stress. And we need to address them before they turn into stress. So I'll share with you one thing about me. I know that there are many days that by the evening I am so exhausted that even though I'm generally an optimist, I look at things very pessimistically when I'm exhausted. I can just hear myself like, oh, it's all bad, it's all a disaster, blah, blah, blah. And then I say to myself, look, you're tired, go to bed. It's enough, stop. And that's where self-awareness comes. Because if I don't unwind myself from that, it will continue to the next day and the next day. And before I know it, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I'm exhausted. Don't feel guilty if you have to take yourself away from being involved in what you do for your day job or your education to get some rest. Look after yourself. So that's why I say I get stressed, but not too often, because there are all these other stages that I try to recognize. I try to recognize all the other emotions and feelings and that go on that need to be addressed before I get to the point of being stressed. And then occasionally when I do get stressed, then maybe I'll just take some time off. Then I'll just completely say, you know what, I'm not working tomorrow, or I'm not working on Monday. Next month, Monday, I book the day off. So we need to be intentional about it, because we're human beings, we're real people, and no one is super. No one is superhuman, as much as we think we would like to be, or externally people may want to suggest we are. None of us are. We're all fundamentally the same. We're human.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the other question now is this: did you ever think of giving up on your journey to becoming what you envisioned, and how were you able to manage and scale through those moments?
Well, the journey to what I envisioned. Let me rephrase. What I envisioned, or what I envision, changes over time. Wow. But the direction is generally the same. What I mean by that is that when I was very young, as a teenager, as far as I could see, there were two things I wanted to do professionally. I know a lot of these questions are professional. There were two things I wanted to do professionally. One was become an engineer, and the other was to run companies. And literally, I didn't even say CEO. The only way I understood, I didn't even know what a CEO was. I just said run companies, right? So those visions were relatively straightforward for me. I studied and I worked and I became an engineer. And to your point about giving up, when you have achievable goals in mind, but they may be some time away, it helps you focus your mind. So my journey to becoming an engineer wasn't straightforward. I didn't just leave school and enter university. When I left school, I couldn't even afford to go to university. So I had to work for a number of years before I could go to university. And I remember so well when I was working, people used to say to me, oh, you'll never go to university. Like the people say this all the time. They say, oh, they'll work and they'll go. But for me, it was very clear. I was working in manufacturing, and anytime I saw an engineer coming to fix something on the line, I would say that should be me. I would tell myself, I'm not telling anybody else. Reminding myself, that should be me, right? That's the important thing. That should be me. So you need to have goals that are achievable. So once I got to the point of being an engineer and I understood, professionally what was required, that other idea of running companies came to mind. And what I realized then in doing a gap analysis was, I was an engineer and I knew how to make things as an engineer and design things. I didn't know about anything else. I didn't know how marketing worked, sales. This was before my Mary Kay encounter. I didn't know finance. I didn't know any of those things, right? So my gap, you achieve one thing, you do a gap analysis to the next thing. And I was very intentional that, okay, I'll go and study and do an MBA because I need these skills, not because I want to be able to tell people I have an MBA. That was not my goal. My goal was not the certificate to tell people I have an MBA. My goal was to close my gap from where I was to where I want to get to. And that has generally been my approach and attitude. You define something along the way, right? Once something is achieved, you have to understand that you have gaps. Just because we have dreams and goals doesn't mean that we can do it. So if you have a goal in mind, prepare for it. Do the work you need to do. Develop the skills and competencies. Some of it may be formal learning. Some of it may be informal learning. Some of it may be apprenticing from someone else, allowing someone else to mentor you, someone else to guide you. But if you don't have a goal in mind, when things get difficult, it's easy to give up. You don't want to give up. You don't want to be blown by the wind and the tide and just go along with things. So that's why it's important to have goals. And you don't have to have the whole goal. You don't have to start from day one saying, I'm going to save the whole world. Just start with, I'm going to get to this point and do something, work towards it.
Wow, thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying this section. So, the other question then is this. This is, as they say, there's a sowing time and there's a reaping.
Yes.
And there's reaping. Some young people find it hard to wait after they have sown. What can you tell on how we can wait after we have sown?
It's interesting. You know why I laugh? Because the idea that you have sown, so you want to reap, in the way it's expressed, you expressed it just now, is somewhat flawed. Because if you go back to what I just described, we sow, but we should never stop sowing.
Wow.
Sowing time doesn't end.
Wow.
Right? It doesn't end. So that you have a continuous reap. So you sow and you reap at some point, but between here where you've sown and where you end up reaping, you keep sowing. And even when you're reaping, you keep sowing and sowing. So you have to, now this is a mindset issue. This is a mindset issue. Because if you have a mindset that says, I've sown, so I need to reap, you will limit yourself. You limit what you can achieve and what you can do in life. Let me give you a concrete example. When I was CEO of Airtel, I went to give a talk to a group of young people in Kumasi. And one of them asked me an interesting question. He said to me, how does it feel now that you've arrived? I was like, arrived? Arrived where? So I said to him, you know what, please come. And I said, look out the window. We were in a, multi-purpose room. I said, look out the window. And he said, okay, what should he say? I said, look out the window, look at the road, the houses, look at what's going on there. I said to him, what you see outside, does that look like a country that has arrived? And he said, no. I said, you have to understand, until we all arrive, none of us have arrived.
Wow.
Now let me tie that back to your initial question about our place in global affairs. The way someone perceives a Ghanaian, a Nigerian, an African for that matter, impacts me and impacts you directly. So we don't have this luxury of assuming that I'm done because I don't like I don't use it for myself, but I borrow the young man's, I've arrived, so I'm cool. Now, if you have a mindset as a young person that, you've sown, so you must reach, what happens is that, yes, when you get that big job, you feel it's your time to reap and you're done. Because look, I've worked hard for the last 20 years. I've now got this big job. I've arrived. I must reap. No, you must keep sowing. You are reaping benefits of your hard work, but you must keep going. Otherwise, what happens is that once that job is over, two things happen. Once you get to that position, two things happen. One is that if you feel you're reaping, then you feel that you must stay in that job forever, because the day you're not in that job, your reaping time is over.
Wow.
Problematic. The other thing that happens is that you feel as though if you leave that job, you have nothing else to offer and nowhere else to go. What does this combined, what do you think it creates? It creates a situation. One of the reasons why sometimes we end up with leaders corrupt is this particular notion. Because if I feel that after this job, I can't get another job, and this is my reaping job for my life, then this reaping job is going to have to serve me, my children, my grandchildren, my descendants to the nth degree. So you see where the mindset is problematic. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself in thinking I've sown, so I must reap. Be a sower and a reaper on a continuous basis, because we have so much work to do as a continent that we don't have the luxury of assuming that just because we do well as an individual, it's enough. It's never going to be enough, at least not for some time. So let's abandon that mindset.
Wow. Now, this is a very different perspective to this. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, Ma. So, looking at your profile, looking at what you've done so far, one of the questions I asked myself, what kind of mindset did you really have? So the question is, what are your values and your mindset? And your mindset you had, and then you had and cultivated while you were growing up and building your career. What were your values and the mindset you had?
So my professional values are integrity, excellence, and generosity. And I tell you why. From an integrity point of view, it's so important to me that people genuinely trust me, not because I told them to, but because my actions have demonstrated to them that they can trust me, that I have integrity. I'll keep my word. I'll do what I said I will do. I will not tell you an untruth because it's the nice thing to do, right? And I must admit that we've taken that on even with our kids. Growing up, we always told them, if you did something wrong, we want to know the truth of what you did, even if it was wrong. I'd rather know the wrong thing that was done than have the child feel they have to hide what they did and save their skin, because that's actually a bigger lie. So integrity really matters to me. Excellence matters because I hold myself to a high standard, right? I'm not holding myself to a standard that says about being better than someone, but did I do my best? Did I max out? Did I dedicate myself? Did I figure out what is required of the task I have, or the job I have, or the exam I have? Did I find out what is required, and did I apply myself to actually delivering my best? I may not have turned out to be the best in the subject or the best in the task at work, but did I give it my best? Excellence is about, you've got to do your job, but you've got to do it to the max of your ability. And then generosity matters to me because, as you probably picked up from some of my story, I certainly didn't get here just by my own doing. There's so many people who played a role in ensuring that, I got to the places I have had the opportunity to be. And it's not just about paying it forward, as sometimes we say. Paying it forward is important, but it's also having the ability to recognize that I'm not just paying it forward because I have something and so I want to pay it forward, but more importantly, that I actually have a responsibility and a duty. The same way other people along the way on the journey took the time to create space for me and help me along, I have the same responsibility to others. So that's on the value side. And of course, there's a whole long list. Look, my personal values outside of the workplace are faith, family, and freedom.
Wow.
Right? My faith matters to me extremely. Now, when I say matters, I'm not trivializing it. And this is about my life now. I'm not just talking about work. My family, extremely important to me. And then the third thing on that list is freedom, which, to some people may sound strange, but actually I value the flexibility and the opportunity to determine what I spend my time on.
Wow. My
time is so important to me. And so my freedom is so important. The freedom to choose is so important. And when I was younger in my career, which will be the same for many young people, I didn't feel I had as much freedom, right? Because let's face it, when I left university and I got a job, I was just happy that somebody would hire me. Look, let's be honest, when you're a young person, it's like, oh, Lord, I got this job, right? That's not the time to be thinking about freedom. That time you're thinking, where do I sign up? Even though I think, look, in this current generation, younger people think differently. And if they can think about creating that balance in their life, that's great. But I think as you get older, as I've gotten older over time, I've created those freedoms for myself. The things that bring me freedom, the opportunity to choose, the understanding of where I'm going, the things I will say no to. I haven't said yes to every job that has come my way. You have to give yourself the freedom to choose. right? So that's from the values point of view. You asked about mindset. And again, I give my parents a huge amount of credit here because I haven't had a mindset that's been driven by my gender. I haven't had a mindset that's been driven by my race or where I've come from or the fact that my parents came from villages in Ghana and all that. None of that. I guess I've just been fortunate that they created not just a can do, but a can win mindset. So they always, created this mindset of you can do it, you can achieve it, you're capable, you're able. And so what happened is that I'll give you two examples. I was probably about 16 or 17 before I truly realized that people think women should do one thing and men should do it. I didn't know. Like in my home, we didn't have that kind of conversation. So I didn't actually realize that I was supposed to be restricted as a girl. It was news to me. And I always tell people that by the time I realized that that's how some people in the world think, it was too late to change my mind because I already knew differently. The same thing goes with like science and math and so on. I actually didn't know that it was supposed to be, I think every subject can be tough. And I only use that as an example because that's what I ended up doing. But there could be other subjects that I could probably try and I'll fail miserably because it's just not an area that I'll be good at. But my parents gave me this mindset of you can do anything. I literally think in my mind that the things I can't do them because I haven't tried. That's the only reason.
Wow.
I never start from whether I have the capability for it. So if you ask me and say, Lucy, could you be a doctor? I'll say yes. I'm not saying on the basis of I have the skills right now. And I'm not saying on the basis on I can just show up tomorrow and be a doctor. What I mean by yes is that if I'm willing to spend the next 10 years studying to be a doctor, I'll be a doctor.
Wow.
Those are two different things, right? So you're not sort of arrogantly saying I can do whatever. You're saying that given the opportunity to pursue it, I can do it, which is very different from a mindset that starts by saying, oh, I've heard it's so hard and it's so difficult and how can somebody like me do it and we so, and when I say we, I mean us, and many of us in Africa, we dismiss ourselves. Oh, as for me, there's no as for you business. Have you tried? Have you? Right? And so this is why we really need to speak to each other differently. And I talk about it in my book that we need to change our language, the things we say to each other, the way we engage each other, our daily conversations have to change. If we want to see better outcomes for our countries, if we want to see prosperity in our countries, we have to first start by understanding the vision. What is the vision we want to see? Prosperity, great. We want to see an Africa where, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's opportunity to find a job, whether it's NEPA taking light or doom soil, whatever it is, we want to see it differently. Look, I've lived in Nigeria as a child. Like I've lived in Nigeria twice, and I'm at least a couple of decades older than most of the people listening. In my childhood, the NEPA was taking lights. We can't, you understand? Fundamentally, it means that we didn't make a plan to create a situation where NEPA won't take light. Fixing, I'm using NEPA because I know we have lots of people from Nigeria who are talking to many Ghanaians. I'll say Dumso. But fixing that is not something that happens overnight. You have to plan for the population growth, the demand, the growth. You have to invest. You have to be forward thinking. That is a mindset shift we have to make. We can't fix our problems by, I recognize it today, why hasn't it been fixed tomorrow?
Wow.
We recognize, we make a plan, and we execute. And sometimes those plans, they can take years. This is why I talk about visions in my book, because I ask people, my question to everyone on the call is, if I'm telling you that some of the things you're experiencing were there when I was a child, and I'm talking when I was 9, I'm not even talking, so, that's almost actually, no, that's almost 4 decades ago, right? I'm
Wow.
talking about being 7, 9, and NEPA taking light a generation ago, more than a
Wow.
generation ago,
Wow.
before many of you were born. So this is where we need to shift our thinking, our behavior. We have to stop being short-term minded. Mindset. You asked me about mindset. We have to have a vision. We have to stop being a short-term minded. We have to be willing to do the work. If you want to find out how, you want examples, I'm not saying copy, but you want to find examples, read. People need to read about how different countries around the world developed. In so many cases, it took them at least a whole generation to see the structural change they wanted. A whole generation is 30 years old. In 10 years, a lot can change. But if you want to be a completely different country, you need to give yourself a generation to be a completely different country.
Wow. Thank you so much. Wow.
So we need to have the patience. We need to apply ourselves. We need to have those visions. We have to change what we talk about. We need to support and encourage each other. We have to act and not react. So act on what we want to see, not react to what is happening around us. Act based on what you want to see. Don't react to what is happening around you. And then we will try, between our visions, our speech, and our actions, our mindset will also shift. And as you shift mindset, which really, our mind is what really controls our reality, our countries, our world will start to see the real changes that we want to see. But it's a journey, and change is not easy. And we need to recognize that whether it's for us personally or for the people in leadership positions, this is a journey.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's really powerful. That's really powerful. And I think this is such a time as this, especially in West Africa, and we are experiencing this. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So I think we have a last question. So okay, no, I think one before the last question. First one is, what can you tell about mentorship for young people?
Mentorship.
Yeah.
Look, I have had many mentors in my career. I still get mentored by people. I think mentoring is really, really important. The challenge is identifying the right mentor. That is the real challenge. Not everybody is fit to be a mentor, just even if they have a big job or they're in a position of power. You need a mentor who genuinely believes in you, who's willing to build you up, support you, spend time with you. But you as a mentee also have to invest. Every time you connect with your mentor, you have to go back and reflect on the conversation, the discussion that you've had. Think about, what do I need to bring back? What did I learn out of this? How am I actually going to apply it? Don't go and sit with the mentor and just talk. We're good at talking. How are you applying it so that you grow and evolve as an individual? So the responsibility isn't just with the mentor, but more importantly, you, the mentee, have to be intentional about getting benefit out of the mentoring relationship, right? Now, so many people ask me about mentoring, but there are two other things that are in some ways more important. Because the thing about mentoring is that you can be mentored by someone in person, and there's some people who have mentored me in person, but you can be mentored by someone you've never met, and they have never met you. Like they don't even know you exist, because there's some people you watch, you learn, we say we admire, and we say that we find them inspiring, but what we're really saying is that we're learning from their track record and what they do. So mentoring is actually more open. The two other aspects that we don't talk about enough, but are actually more important. One is coaching, right? One is coaching, because a coach is someone who's outside of your world. They don't work with you. They're not directly connected to you apart from the coaching relationship. But the coach has a sole responsibility to bring out the best in you. That's not the mentor's job. The mentor gives you an example, sets a path that you could follow. The coach is not only your cheerleader, but actually helping you focus, identify what's great about you, what to park, and so on and so forth. And I mentioned coaching because In some cases, people can get a coach that's free, but in many cases, coaching is a paid for partnership. And because it's a service, I find that lots of people don't want to invest in coaching. They're like, oh, why should I spend the money? Coaching is so much more important, especially when you get to a certain level, than mentoring. A good coach is worth their weight in gold. So coaching, and I can tell you across the globe, so many leaders that you see are coached. You need someone you're going back to and reflecting. And a coach, you know, your family member, they're not objective. They love you. They care about you. The coach will also tell you when you messed up. This thing that you did or you said, that's not the best of you. You shouldn't do it again. So coaching. Then the last thing I'd add on there is sponsorship. Now, sometimes the word sponsorship has been bastardized to the point where people think, you know, that negative sponsorship, especially sometimes with young women, oh, he's my sponsor. And that's not what I'm talking about. So let's be clear. I'm talking about, especially when you work in an organization where there are many people to be considered for progress in their career, then my question to you is, when you are not in the room, at that management or leadership table, and you are not in the room to speak for yourself, who is speaking for you? Who in the room is the person, right, who when your name comes up, they'll say, oh, Lucy, oh, I know her, look, her work. In fact, I really think that we should give her this position. Who's the person? Because you have to be intentional about people who are not necessarily your manager, but they're in your organization. They know you well enough. They know your character. They know your work. They know your excellence. They know your integrity, and they are willing to vouch for you in your absence. Very important. Very, very, very important. So I encourage people to think more broadly beyond mentoring. You need mentorship, coaching, sponsorship.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, ma'am. So thank you so much, ma'am, for this time. We're really, really grateful, really, really grateful, really, really grateful. So this is the last question I ask every speaker who comes to speak, and then they leave in. And you know, you've had experience with different people. You've gone to several countries and several continents, and you've seen a lot of things. And I believe in Africa. That's one reason I'm doing this. I believe in Africa, and it's the fact that I'm actually young, and I believe young people can actually make things work, even with the fact that they're still young. So, Ma, what advice would you give to young people of this generation? What is that present thing you want young people to know about? Like, you know, with your experience, what that thing you want young people to know? One thing.
I want young people to know that, one, their time and energy is priceless, so they should use it wisely, right? And when I say that, are you going to spend your energy on pointing out what is wrong, or are you going to invest in being part of the solution, right? The second thing I want young people to know is that they need to partner with each other. They need to work together. You need to be able to see the vision and the goals so big that it's not about your personal glory, about whether you're recognized for it, but that together you achieved it. That's where partnership comes in, because where we are now is that we need a critical mass of people, enough people. It doesn't have to be everybody. A critical mass is not normally everybody, but it's a large enough critical mass that wants to see change, right? And when I say a critical mass that wants to see change, it means that they're willing to act to deliver on change, right? So so that's point number two, the partnership that will bring them together so that they will act together to execute on change. And the last thing I'd say to them is that they have to recognize that, you know, when we're young, time, the way we see time, and when we're older, the way we see time it's not exactly the same. And when we're all young, we want things to change now. Except when we get older, we realize that it doesn't work like that. So understand, research and understand how change works. The whole country doesn't have to change overnight. I'd love for it to be the case, but I know it's not realistic. The question is, how are you going to identify changes that you can be involved in as part of that bigger critical mass and actually make them happen. Make the change that you want to see happen. That project that can be executed in 1 year, that change that can be done over a 2-year period. Are you going to have the heart, the consistency, the dedication to see it through? Because guess what? If you don't want to invest your energy in executing on change, why do you think someone else will? Right? You know, I'm sure you've all heard the saying, be the change you want to see. It doesn't mean that you have to fix everything. What I have control over, what you have control over, our spheres of influence are different. But if we are all within our sphere of influence, being the change we want to see, creating the change, then collectively we move the country forward. It's lots of little bits of change all over that eventually create the change.
Wow. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me. Sorry, I had a sneeze. A sneeze come on. Sorry about that. You're welcome.
Wow. So, you said something about change, and then, presently in Nigeria, there's a protest going on, and then, I made some research about the protest, and I discovered that, the change doesn't come at once, and you having to speak about this now, it means that, okay, miracle, this is right at the season. And thank you so much. I want to say very big thank you for accepting this invitation, at the same time for actually pouring out your knowledge, and at the same time taking out time to actually be here today. Thank you so much. And then I would want to read out questions from here before we let you go. Okay, so she said, okay, when you worked in DRC, some of your challenges were emotional or psychological. And she says, you have once explained. Can you please expand the kind of challenges you encountered, and then what you did to overcome?
Well, the thing about it is that when you go to a different country to work, you're in a different context and a different environment. And sometimes people forget that. They think, look, we're all African, so it should just work seamlessly. And then I remind people that, well, hold on a minute. When you go from the UK to France, you don't assume you're going to the same place. Right? When you're working in the UK and you're used to a certain way of working and lifestyle, when you go to France, people live and behave differently. So why is it that when it's about Black people and we move from one country to another, we just assume that we should just, it's a different country. People have a different way of living, lifestyle. And most importantly, I had to work in another language full time, right? So I was working in French full time. That creates some real strain from a mental point of view, because your brain in every conversation is working double. It's doing, because I think in English, like my thoughts are in English. So if I'm speaking French, it means that I'm doing a double translation. Like I'm listening, translating, figuring out what I want to say, translate and speak. So that was physical strain, gave me a headache every day for a few months. So the person asked about the emotional, like, you go to a different country, you adjust. I had my children were very young at the time. You're trying to settle them into a new school environment and make life as easy as possible for them. For one of them, it was quite hard. So then you sometimes you think to yourself, oh, have I done the right thing by them? You also have to adjust to your new colleagues who may be in the same company, but they're in a different place. The way I describe the Congolese work environment to me is, as a Ghanaian, it's the Congolese way is actually more similar to Nigeria than Ghana, right? And I think it's because both countries are big places. They're much bigger places compared to Ghana. So Ghanaians are, calm and, sometimes can be a bit passive or passive aggressive. We can have that conversation. I'm a very honest person, so I know what Ghanaians are like. It's not all shiny. Whereas Nigerians can be more sort of upfront in your face. I found that in Congo as well, people can be very upfront and in your face. And if you don't take the time out to, and in the beginning, I found it and it's hard because it was being done in French. So not only was I dealing with the language, but I was dealing with the style, and I didn't expect it. So you can almost sometimes take offense when you shouldn't take offense. And again, this is why I talk about self-awareness and knowing yourself as a leader and how you react to situations. It was really important that I understood that, you know what, this is just a style difference. It's not personal. It's not about you. It's not that your team doesn't like you, but the style is different and you need to embrace it, right? The same way if you work in Accra and you move to Lagos, you need to adjust to Lagos life. It's not, you know, so yeah, but look, on the flip side, that happened for the first few months. And I'll be honest, like many evenings I'd call my husband and I'd say, you know what, I don't think I can do this. So to get to the point of saying you don't think you can do it means that you're feeling the strain really, really hard. So I want the person who asked the question to know that the fact that I stayed doesn't mean that it was easy. You get through the strain, you grow through it. We went on to achieve some wonderful things as a team. I'm still in touch with many of the people that I worked with. We created great relationships and great bonds over time. So it was challenging, but it was worth it.
Wow. Wow. I hope your question has been answered. Okay, let me see if we have another question there. Okay, let me see. Okay, so I don't think we have any other question again.
Okay.
Okay, so I thought I should ask this because of I feel if I didn't ask it, I won't feel comfortable. So let me just ask it.
Okay.
Okay, so what can you tell us about the influence of your faith in your success and how much has it impacted you?
Hugely. Faith for me is practical, right? When I say practical, I mean we have to endeavor to apply our faith in every aspect of our lives. It's not just about going to church on Sunday. It's about learning the lessons. It's about you learn and you apply. Now, don't get me wrong. By no means am I claiming perfection. And by no means am I claiming that I get everything right every single time. But our goal should always be the application. So faith is not just about belief. And I have very strong belief. I always look at my life and I say, okay, the way this journey has gone, God definitely has a plan. He has a goal. There's a reason why, all this is happening. And so, when great things, I'm like, wow, I mean, I never thought I'd be here or be doing this. So there's that aspect. So there's the aspect of faith where you acknowledge and appreciate the providence and the good fortune. There's the practical aspect that actually there are rules, and when you read the Bible, it's interesting because when people sometimes reference the Bible and they remind us of all the wrong things that some people did. Yes, but those lessons are there not for us to also go and do it. If you read fully, you will know that every time there were consequences. So it's actually for us to avoid doing what they did, right? I've heard it over and over again. Someone has two wives, and they're if you're a Christian, you have your own, or not even in the two wives. Maybe that's typically not a Christian. So let's not use that example. But someone has a wife and he has 3 concubines or whatever, and he says, oh, but this one in the Bible did it, and that one in the. Did you read the lines of his consequences? The consequences he faced for his behavior. It's not okay. We need to stop living in a way that says we have faith, we go to church on Sunday, we do this, and then outside we just do whatever. We make a mistake, we have to acknowledge that it's a mistake. Don't use somebody else doing it as an excuse, because you will face the consequences the person faced as well. You don't get away with it, right? So for me, it's so important that it informs my behavior. Again, with all humility, I'm not perfect. I don't get it always right. And it's important to acknowledge when you make a mistake, when you get it wrong, when something doesn't work well for you. It's so important that you acknowledge that I messed up this time. But then how do I learn the lesson? What were the activities that led me to this behavior that was wrong? And how do I ensure that I recognize this quickly in future? I repent of it, but also recognize and not do it again. So faith isn't just about the providence and things going well for you. Faith for me is about being intentional, learning from your faith and applying your faith. Again, that goes back to my point about action versus reaction, right? If you're
Wow.
basing your behavior on faith, then you have to be intentional about how you behave.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. But I wish everyone was here, but yeah. So I think I know everyone is clapping there. So please, before Mrs. Lucy will leave, please let's say I want to say thank you before she goes. Let's just say thank you. Maybe about 3 thank you or 4 thank you before she goes. Let's just say thank you. Let's just say thank you. Okay. Okay. Yeah, she's thanking you. So thank you for your answer. I thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
So what else again?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So please let's wait. Let me say about 2 thank you, 1 thank you before Mrs. Lucy goes, because she's really done a lot for us. So she spent 1 hour with us. Really, that's very powerful. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I see Willie Wills. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, good. Very good. I like you guys. You guys sending the thank you very well.
Oh, hi, Mariel. You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Lucy, thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Really
You're
grateful.
welcome. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work you're doing, because we do need to engage and be intentional about the changes we need to see. It's not going to happen overnight, but we can do it. Let's not your children, be having the same conversation we're having. Then we haven't made progress.
Yeah.
You understand? That's why I say to people, like, if you're welcome, Nana. If we don't make progress and our children have, then you know what? You and I have failed. So we have to do the work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna let you go now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you all. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Bye.
All right.